This is the Millennials in Multifamily Podcast, brought to you by Kronos Investment Partners. We interview industry experts to unlock key information that will help young professionals break into the multifamily world in order to create long-term and short-term wealth. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to iTunes and leave a rating and written review so we can reach more listeners.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Millennials in Multifamily Podcast. I'm your host, John Stober, with my co-host, Fritz Ritter. And today we have Dave Toupin on to talk about how he launched himself into the multifamily world at just 22 years of age. Dave is currently a partner at Obsidian Capital, a full-service real estate syndication and development firm based out of Austin, Texas. Unlike a lot of real estate investors, Dave had a lot of opportunities everywhere he went, and he even turned down a six-figure job out of college to jump into real estate full-time where nothing was guaranteed, especially in income. He credits much of his success to having razor-sharp focus on one thing, which was acquiring multifamily properties. Dave, thanks so much for joining us today on the Millennials and Multifamily Podcast. I think something everyone would really want to know is just a little bit more about your backstory and how did you get into real estate at such a young age?
Man, well, thanks guys for having me, John and Fritz. How did I get into real estate? I started when I was 19. I was in college, my junior year, and I was one of the crazy ones. I wanted to start my own business. And honestly, I think it started listening to Bigger Pockets. I was listening to a podcast and I got really excited and interested in real estate. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And for me, that was like game over. I'm doing real estate, no doubt. It just makes sense. So I didn't really know what part of real estate I wanted to do at that point. I knew I didn't want to be an agent. I knew I wanted to do commercial, but I kind of started leaning more towards multifamily over time. But I had this limiting belief in my head that I had to do single family before I got to multifamily. So how did I get started? I started with a little bit of wholesaling, probably did about 6 months of wholesaling and a couple flips. And then I jumped straight into buying apartments. My first deal was at 212 units. It was 24 apartments. So, and then the rest is kind of history.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's obviously that's an awesome story how you got in. So what made you pick, I guess, real estate investing over a high-powered investment banking job? I know that was kind of like your background, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, those jobs paid great. I had a couple job offers that were north of six figures, and I was ecstatic about that. I worked really hard to get them, but I think I kept having limiting beliefs in my head that I kept overcoming. So first one was I have to work a job, make a high salary, take the money, invest in real estate. That was first limiting belief. Once I figured out I didn't have to do that, I could go straight to real estate. The next one was like, do I have to do single family first before I would do multifamily? But in terms of the job, I knew I was at the right point. I was young, no kids, no family. I don't have a lot of obligations. I don't have a mortgage. So now is the time, if any, for me to jump in and try this out. And I turned down I didn't even leave them open-ended. I just told them, I was like, hey, I'm not interested in taking the offer. I'm going into real estate. So I burned the bridge behind me so that I had nowhere to go forward.
It's like the saying, if you want to take the island, burn the boats.
Dude, Alexander the Great, right? That's how it happened.
So, I mean, you've already mentioned a lot that you had these limiting beliefs that you had to overcome. How were you able to do that with so many other options on the table?
I think this plays a part in a lot of people's decisions is like, how bad do you want it? And I know it's a really simple concept. I think a lot of people talk about it and they really want it. I think there's another group of people that actually will do whatever it takes. And I think that is kind of what I subscribe to. And I, at that point, had such big goals, and I knew the quickest way to get there was by doing my own thing and starting a company. And so at that point, I was too naive and ignorant being so young, but I didn't see the risk in that. I saw only benefit from going out on my own. I saw more risk in getting stuck in a corporate job than I did going in and starting my own business. When I had zero guarantee of making money, by the way, and I had barely any money saved up. I was living with my parents still. So
yeah, I think a common limiting belief is I'm too young to do these big deals because I don't have enough money or I don't have access to capital. Was that one of your limiting beliefs? And if so, how did you get over that?
Dude, I didn't even think about it. It was weird. So I put my first deal under contract as 212 units. I had like no contacts for money. I have some family who are developers, real estate. but I knew I wasn't going to go to them. I didn't want to go to family. I wanted to like raise money on my own. So what I did was I got the deal under contract. I only have like $5,000 to my name. I'm taking 15 credits at school, full-time student, and I've never bought something like this before. So how am I supposed to close on it now? I kind of talked a big game and I put this thing under contract. Now I've got to back it up. So I just hit the streets. I went to events, networked. I mean, I kind of found it. I cold called people, asked for referrals, like, anyone who has money that can invest 25, 50,000. And so my first raise between those two deals was about like 350, 400,000. So a lot for a first raise. It's not, now it's not a lot, but it sounded, at the time it was a lot. So it was not easy. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but you really lit a fire under your ass, and you probably wouldn't have hit the streets and hit the phones if you hadn't just put that deal in a contract and taken action.
Yeah, I think that's what holds a lot of people back. They're willing to take the first step and say, hey, I'll figure the rest out later. And they try and figure it all out up front, which is impossible. You will never figure it all up front. So if you're waiting to figure it all out up front, you're going to be waiting for a long time.
So you bought those 12 units. Could you just tell us a little bit more about those deals, actually operating them? Were there any challenges that you had to overcome, or was it just smooth sailing from day one?
Oh, yeah, it was the opposite of smooth sailing. It was. I couldn't be two more different deals. They were literally a block apart from each other. 12 units. We'll call one the bad deal and one the good deal. So this is what was so great on these first two deals, because I got this awesome contrast on what makes a good deal and what makes a bad deal. We bought them both for about the exact same price. It was like $45 a unit or something like that. The bad deal had a flat roof, which we were told was in better condition than it actually was. It had 2 bedrooms. The good deal had all 1 bedrooms that were smaller. The bad deal had all 2 bedrooms that were bigger, which you'd think would be a better thing. However, they were all in bad shape, which I thought my first walkthrough, I was like, man, these aren't that bad. This is C-class apartments. Mm-hmm. They were a lot worse than you think. And then it had a really old boiler, which caused a lot of issues for the heating system. So that's bad, and bad tenants. And all the tenants, like 70% of the tenants were not good tenants. So that's bad deal. Good deal was 1 bedrooms, say 12 units, pitched roofs, which was in great shape. The owner owned it for about 25 years. And he was the guy that was there every day shoveling snow or picking up trash or mowing the lawn. Like, he took good care of it. The tenants were all older people who paid their rent on time. The rents were lower, probably by about $100 compared to the other one. But that property had very low expenses and low maintenance. So what I learned was the deferred maintenance eats into your profits. So that deal produced 10% cash on cash, the good one. The bad deal struggled to produce 6 or 7. And the only reason I got it up to the 8 that I told investors I would get them is because I got in there and I started painting units myself and doing the work myself. So I learned very quickly the difference between buying a deal with low deferred maintenance and high deferred maintenance, and the fact that I did not raise enough money to fix the deferred maintenance on the bad deal.
Okay, so let's dive into that. What do you mean you didn't raise enough money on the front end to fix the deferred maintenance on the bad deal?
Yeah, so when we're talking about doing a syndication, when I underwrite a deal and try and figure out what price I need to pay for it, I factor in a lot of different things. And one of those is renovation costs. And so for this 12 unit, I think I really only factored in like $20,000, $25,000 in renovations. We were going to renovate a couple of the really bad units, do some work on the boiler, landscaping, and some lighting and a couple little miscellaneous things around. We under budgeted for a couple of those items. I didn't budget to fix the roof, which the roof needed fixing. And it turned out that 8 of the 12 units were actually in pretty bad shape and needed more work. So that $25,000 should have been $50,000 or $60,000 to do all those renovations comfortably. And had I factored that in, I would have probably offered a lower purchase price to them. Mm-hmm. It would have affected the price I paid. So what ended up happening, like I said, is I was in there manually doing a lot of the work. And on top of it, I self-managed both of these deals. And we would forego our management fee to make sure the investors would get the returns that they needed to get, that we told them that we would give them. So that was, I guess, a little explanation behind not raising enough money for the renovations.
I'm sure those trials and tribulations, though, that probably gave you a lot of experience to, 1, recognize what a good deal looks like. And now 2, you're probably much better at managing properties because you've actually been in there like renovating and turning units over. So it's like taking lemons and turning them into lemonade.
Oh, it taught me that I don't ever want to manage properties again. So I bought another deal after that and self-managed it. It was much larger, but after I sold those 3 first deals, I don't self-manage anymore. We hire it out.
Yeah. So I wanted to go into that next deal. So you did the 212 units. What did that next deal look like? Was it much bigger? Was it a little bit bigger? How'd you scale up?
So right after I closed on those 12 units, found this deal, started negotiating as 96 units in Michigan. It was in the B area. It was a C property. Sent a mailer to an owner who is an extremely wealthy individual. He owned over $1 billion in real estate on his own. And he ended up calling me off a piece of mail I sent him saying that I want to buy his property, which it was unbelievable to me. And so he just took a liking to me. We built a good relationship, and he said he'd sell me the property. And although I had told him, I don't have the experience, but you give me the shot, and I'll prove to you I can close on this. And so he did. That deal we bought for $4.2 million. Then a year and a half later, ended up selling it for $7 million. So absolutely crushed it on that deal. That was the prime value add. And the coolest part about that was not only did I self-manage, but I lived on site, and I essentially house hacked it. So that was kind of my kind of put me on the map, house hacking that 100-unit deal, and really self-managed. I learned so much from that process. It's incredible.
I've house hacked a 2-unit. That's
awesome. I love it. Dude.
A little bit different though. House hacking a 96 unit. That's amazing.
It was interesting.
So with that 96 unit, so you went from the 12 unit to the 96 unit, or the 212 units. Do you wish you had just gone to the 96 unit, or do you think there was value in those 212 units, and had you not done those, you wouldn't have been ready to take on something so big?
Yeah, there's no shot I would have ever been able to do the 96 if I didn't do the 12s. When I talk to people, it's a good topic you bring up. A lot of people say, "Oh, go big, get into multifamily, go buy 100+ unit deals." Like, don't do that if you're just starting out. That doesn't make any sense. You're not going to be able to get it done, and if you do, you're going to be working with a partner who has a lot of experience, who's going to be doing a majority of the work, and so you're going to be kind of taking a backseat. So if you want to actually get in and learn and have confidence in the ability to actually go on and build a company around this, I think you should start a little smaller and learn from it first. So no, there's no chance I would have been able to do that if I hadn't first done the 24.
So Dave, I thought something was interesting. You said you built a relationship with this owner and then he agreed to sell to you. How did you build that relationship?
So he had an office. His main base was in Michigan, but majority of the time I was talking to him, he's actually in his place in Miami. And so it was a lot of over the phone conversations, and I just kind of told him my story, and he related to me. He's 71 years old. So, he related to me somehow. I was 21 at the time, but essentially at the end, after I closed and purchased the property, I actually finally got to meet him. And I said, "Why did you sell me the deal?" Because he sold it to me for probably at least $500,000 below what he could have gotten for it. And he's like, "I didn't really need the extra couple $100,000. I just liked you. You reminded me of myself when I was your age." And that blew my mind. At the end of the day, what that engraved in me is relationships are everything.
So how long do you think you had to work on that to build that relationship? It wasn't like a couple of weeks and then he was like, "Here you go." You probably had to work a couple of months calling him and stuff, right?
That was pretty quick, to be honest. He called me from a mailer, so he was already ready to sell it. He was just feeling me out at first. And so after we got to know each other, we toured the property. He had his nephew managing it, his nephew was a nice guy, but the worst property manager you could. If you want a property to fail, you put him in. And so it's like it was a relative thing, right? He had his relative in there just doing it to give him something to do. So it was not being managed well, and I realized that from the start. The maintenance guy was a drunk. Manager was friends with all the tenants, not upping the rents. We ended up getting rents up $500 on several, many of the units.
Wow.
So it was insane.
Yeah. Did those even require renovations, or did you just bump them?
We would get, without renovations, just to paint and carpet, we were getting $200 to $250. With renovations, I got up to $500 increases.
Jeez.
And we were spending like $5,000. We weren't doing anything crazy.
Yeah, you were making all your money back in less than a year.
Oh, we crushed it. Yeah, we killed that deal.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Home run.
Yeah.
So that deal was in Michigan. I know a lot of people talk about buying in these growing markets, and you guys are actually in Texas right now, which is a really hot market. Mm-hmm. Do you think that you need to be in a super hot market, or if you're in a place like Michigan where maybe it's more of a seller or a buyer's market, is it possible to get good deals there? I mean, obviously you had a home run in one of those markets.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion that you can find a good deal anywhere. I'm not comfortable buying in smaller markets that I don't know just because I'm not familiar with it. But I think if you're familiar with the market and you want to invest in your backyard and there's, still at least a decent pool of buyers and sellers, there's no reason why you can't profit and make money on a deal. So, this was still in a B area, a great rental market, not a ton of new development going on. So limited number of rentals, middle income demographic. It was just a classic C to B value add conversion.
And so do you shy away when there's a ton of new development going on in an area? Or do you view that as a sign as it's the path of progress?
Sometimes. So here in Austin is just an unbelievable amount of new development everywhere. It's crazy. So I'm building several projects here right now. So if we believe in the market and it's got good metrics and demographics, if we're building the right type of product, I'll do it. I'll still buy existing properties in an area where there's development, but that's a good point you make. I have an investor right now. I just toured a deal with him a couple of weeks ago. He was going to put a very large sum of money into. It was a $60 million deal. He's about to put $10 million into it. And it was in a smaller market on the East Coast. And the absorption was like 400 or 500. For those who don't know, absorption is like how many new units can the market support in new development, or how many units does the market need to be built to kind of fill that demand for new apartments. And there's, I think, about 700 or 800 units being built at the time. And the rent, they're looking at increasing the rents several $100s up to the prices of these new developments. And it was a property that's 15 to 20 years old. And I'm like, well, it sounds great on paper, but you trying to get those rents up on top of the fact that 600 or 700 new units are coming to the market in the next 6 to 9 months is going to make it really difficult for you to hit those rent bumps. So in that case, that was a scenario where the new development actually really hurt the project's chances and ended up turning it down because of that. So yeah, I mean, we look at all that stuff.
I like that you're really not just looking at the numbers, but you're looking at the story behind the numbers. Yes, there's new development coming up, but there's only enough room to absorb 400 or 500 units, and they're building 700. And now you're trying to get those B class units up to the A class units. It's just probably not going to happen.
I'm a huge numbers guy, as you guys, I know, John, for sure. I mean, I'm an analytical freak. I love the numbers, but there is a huge part of real estate that comes down to intuition and your gut feeling. And so numbers might look great, but if you go there and it just doesn't feel right, and the story, the best deals I've ever done have had a good story behind them. So if it doesn't have a good story, I'm normally not interested.
So speaking of story, we kind of heard the beginning of your first 3 deals. Where are you at now?
So since then, I've been in business for about 3.5 years. I've bought a little over $50 million in multifamily properties, and we've got another, well, I guess it's changing as of a couple weeks ago, but about $30 million in new development in the pipeline.
Wow.
So, and we're about to buy a $15 million, 230 apartments back up in Michigan, actually.
Awesome. So are you working with other partners right now, or are you flying solo?
So yeah, since I did those first 3 deals, I actually partnered. I started a company with a guy. His name's Glenn Gonzalez, and we formed Obsidian Capital. We probably see him on my polo here. So that's our investment firm. We work full time together. We're building a corporate office here in Austin together, and we've done several deals. Been together about 1.5 years, and we've done, I think we bought about 400 apartments together, and then all these new developments. So everything we do right now, everything we do is under Obsidian roof. And so, our goal is to buy another 2,000 apartments this year together.
That's holy cow. So what do you look for in a potential partner? Or why did you choose to partner with Glenn?
Great question. Partnerships are like marriages. I've had good ones and I've had bad ones. Glenn is a phenomenal business partner. I met him at a mastermind with Rod Cleef. He's a kind of a educational, I don't want to say guru, but educational type figure in the multifamily space. And he has a mastermind group that the first one was 2.5 years ago. We met at his house in Florida, and that's where I met Glenn. And so we ended up having great synergy. He was kind of on the tail end of a bad partnership. He owned about $300 million in multifamily real estate, and they were selling everything because they decided as partners to split. Glenn if you know Glenn, he's salt of the earth, ethical, highly intelligent. He started as a maintenance guy when he was my age. in apartments and worked his way up to owning a huge portfolio of, almost 5,000 apartments. And so humble beginnings, real good guy. He knows every aspect of the business. There's not many people I would say are actually experts in things. He is an absolute expert in apartments. That's all I know. So when I met him, I was the youngest and the smallest owner in the room, and he was the biggest owner in the room. And we just hit it off really well. And he's telling me, I'm winding down my company, but I want to keep growing with the right people this time. They split for various reasons, but Glenn has certain ethics and values, a high integrity guy, and he didn't agree with what the other person was doing in the company. So he's like, let's sell everything off and, we'll go our separate ways. So Glenn and I met and realized, hey, look, not only do we want to both continue buying multifamily and do it on a huge scale, but we both have very similar morals. We're very like-minded people. I'm very analytical, and he's got tons of relationships. He's the operational type guy. And so we just mesh really well together in terms of those synergies. And so we first, which I recommend anyone getting into a partnership, is don't just start a company right off the bat. First, buy a deal together and see how it goes, or do some business together and see how it goes. So we bought a 160-unit apartment complex outside of Houston, Texas, and it went very well. So we were like, let's start a company. Let's do this together and grow. And so I moved from Michigan down to Austin where he lives. And now we're here and we've exploded and grown a ton since.
So you have a great partner right now, and it sounds like you have very complementary skills. Would you mind telling us a little bit about some of the bad partnerships that you've been in and what made those bad?
Yeah. I mean, not to get too detailed, but I've had partners on some of those first few deals that did not work out. And we ended up selling some of those deals and did very well on the deals we sold, but ended up selling because of it. And reasoning being, first of all, in the end, we didn't have the same goals and priorities. For example, I wanted to do strictly multifamily. I'm not like a coach or a guru type figure. And he wanted to do a lot of educational coaching seminars and coaching programs and stuff. And I like real estate. I love doing deals. So we kind of differed there. And then at the end of the day, if you don't carry the same values as your business partner, you are going to want to make different decisions at different business points. And so if I have values where I really put, let's say, my investors first in all scenarios, and I like making decisions and making sure I have really good business relationships. I don't burn bridges. I don't like rubbing people the wrong way. And this other person just was a different kind of person, would burn a bridge in an instant to make $1,000. And, it just wasn't how I operate. So, long story short, when you have differing goals and different values that don't line up, it's never going to work. So, ended on a good note, sold those properties, did very well, and, went our own way.
That's awesome.
But it was a great learning experience.
Yeah, definitely a good learning experience. It sounds like got to taste the bad in order to get the good.
100%.
So it sounds like you kind of went both ways, right? Like you've done it kind of a little bit on your own, and now you're working with Glenn, who has a ton of experience. So for someone just starting out, would you recommend going the hard knocks route that you went in the beginning, or immediately partnering up with somebody who has a ton of experience and track record?
If you've got the chance, Glenn would never have partnered with me if I didn't already have prior experience. That deal went so well that we first did together because I was good at closing deals. I ran the numbers on that deal, offered on it. When we put it under contract, we closed on that thing so smoothly. It was like perfect. And so if I didn't have that experience, and he was very surprised because he first actually just tried to hire me. He knew I was sharp and young and had some experience, but at first he was like, hey, I'm looking at this deal. Can I hire you to do some work on it? And I was like, with all due respect, man, I like you a lot and I really want to work with you, but I'm not for hire. Like, I'll partner with you on it. I've got enough experience to do that. And so he was kind of like, whoa. It's like, well, all right, let's try it out. So, looking back, it took a lot of guts to say that to a guy of his level of success, but I'm glad I did because we got in there and he's like, wow, this guy actually knows what he's doing. So I think to your question, should you partner with somebody right away? If you have the opportunity, yeah, I think you should, because regardless, you're going to learn a lot. But don't ask for more than you deserve in the company. You're not going to be 50-50 partners with somebody that brings 90% of the experience and the money. So you kind of have to know your place in that scenario. I think going to school of hard knocks is good a little bit in the beginning. Maybe you just one-off partner with that person on a deal. And, you bring the deal and then you both kind of split up the work and you do it with your own separate companies, but you buy it together as partners and you learn a lot that way. And then if it goes well, then you partner with them. But I would not have carried the amount of weight that I did with Glenn if I hadn't had prior experience. I would be like an intern. So go out there, get some value, get some experience, and that gives you leverage to bring to the table in a partnership with somebody that's at that level.
So, I mean, I think a lot of our listeners are actually older than you, and they're going to have less experience than you, a lot less experience too. So if they're in that position, I mean, would you suggest they actually work underneath of someone such as Glenn to gain that experience and not even be a partner, but to be in that intern role?
Yeah, potentially, if you're okay with that. If you don't mind, going and working for somebody and learning under their guidance over the course of a year or two, and then, at that point you have more of a skill set to go out. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it depends on who you are. I don't like working for people. Like, I'm an entrepreneur, so I personally couldn't have done that. But I think for a lot of people, not everyone's like that. Everyone's different, So I think for some people, yeah, that's a really good way to go do it.
So something else I'm interested in knowing is, with you being so young, not only was it probably difficult to raise the equity for those deals, but how are you developing these relationships with brokers? I mean, some of these brokers, like, you're probably their kids' age.
Yeah. Yeah. Glenn, my business, he's 51. His youngest son is my age. So I get that a lot. I was on a podcast earlier today, and the exact same question came up. How do you talk to brokers? Because that's what people think is the hardest part. I think the first thing is 3 years ago when I started, the market was not as hot as it is today. And so I think brokers today are absolutely bombarded with people because of all these, educational platforms and coaching and seminars teaching people to buy apartments. There are just an insane amount of people bombarding these brokers. And so they are very selective on who they spend their time talking to. So yeah, a 21-year-old kid or 20 at the time when I started comes and starts talking to them. And they're like, okay, should I even waste time talking to this person? My advantage was I never even brought up my age. And I met most of them over the phone or through email. So I could talk the talk. The biggest thing that helped me do it was I had enough knowledge that I could talk the talk and sound like I knew what I was talking about and sound like I was experienced. And the part that I didn't know is a little bit of fake it till you make it. But I sound like I had the confidence in talking enough to these brokers that they took me seriously. And then I would go meet them at tours and they'd be like, all right, like, is your dad here? Are you David? Who's the buyer? But then I would walk through it with them and I would ask the right questions and talk confidently enough in it that they didn't really have a problem and they took me seriously. They asked me like, how are you buying these? I'm like, oh, I've got funding. I didn't have any money. I was like, oh, I've got funding. I've got a couple wealthy individuals backing me. Like, they've got the money ready. We're ready to go. We can get financing. And I would, I'd say the stuff. I didn't have it, but I knew I'd be able to get it. So it was what I had to do to overcome the age. But to me, I never brought it up. And in my mind, age was never a factor that would limit me. There's no difference for me at 21 in my head buying an apartment building for someone who's 40, 50, or 60.
Lighting that fire into your ass.
Fire, dude. Do you guys encounter that a lot? Do you guys is the age, like, do you have examples where the age thing has?
I've met with brokers and it's definitely thrown them off a bit in the meeting because they get like their loan officer, their analyst, and like the main broker, and we'll meet in this big table. And then it's just like me who, I mean, I do have the beard, which kind of helps me a little bit, but they still look at me and they're just like, so it always comes up too. So how old are you? And when I tell them 26, they're just like, oh, so you guys got other partners, right? And I'm like, yeah, we got other partners. But
yeah, that's funny.
What you're talking about, though, is right. Like building the relationship, like just knowing how to talk, like what I say, talk shop with them. And they'll definitely respect you a lot more because you talk through them.
And they may have talked about it behind my back, but I'm dead serious when I say in the 4 years I've been doing this, I have barely ever gotten asked what my age is, and I look super young. I have a baby face. When I was 20, I looked like I was 16, and so I don't know how it didn't get brought. I swear, I think it was I literally went and talked to them with zero fear, 100% confidence, and they just took it. So it's weird. I get asked that all the time, but it really, in my head, it didn't affect me.
We were out in we're looking for deals in Ohio, and we were meeting with CBRE, and they're in like one of the tallest buildings in the city, like top floor. And like one of their vice presidents invites us into this big office with glass windows, like overlooking the whole city. And Fritz had been developing the relationship with him over the phone, so he had no idea like who we were. It's the first time we're meeting with him. And then we got there, we're like dressed up all in suits, looking as nice as we can. And yeah, he was just like, was expecting to meet with someone like a little bit older, but then we just talked
Said
shop.
that?
No, that was definitely like
the feel.
yeah, his body language said that. But then we just started talking shop, and by the end of it, I think he was actually like he felt a lot better because I mean, we were talking about like absorption, building, what's happening in the market, what we're looking for, and we still talk with that broker today. Well, I mean, Fritz, you talk with him every
14 days. I get a reminder to call Ed.
Love it, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of it too that helps is like I've always every time I've in Obsidian and then prior to that, like I always put on a very professional image and not even just like wearing a suit or whatever, but if you like go to our website, everything looks like we're a legitimate business. We've got experience, track record, and I think just the whole vibe I put on was like, hey, look, like I'm qualified to do this. And like it almost would have offended me for someone to say I wasn't qualified, even if I was, even before I'd ever bought one. I was like, I'm just as qualified as anybody. And to get over that fear, it's a broker's job. Like brokers are there to connect buyers and sellers. If you can breathe, you're a buyer. If you're alive, you're a buyer. It doesn't matter how old you are, who you are, you have the ability to do it. There's no reason a 21-year-old should have been able to buy $5 million building. I did it. And that's proof that it doesn't take anything crazy. That's not money from my parents that did it. That's not clout from anyone else. It's me proving that it's possible. And so if my dumb ass can do it, anybody can do it. It's possible.
Wait, so you're not Sam Zell's son?
Oh, not, yeah, not Sam. I wish, man. Actually, I don't wish I was Sam Zell's son. I'm glad that everything I've done today has been earned, and I feel good about it.
Yeah, I bet it feels amazing. Are you struggling to understand how to underwrite multifamily properties? Hi, I'm John Stober, and I completely understand your problem. I thought underwriting would come naturally to me due to my background in finance and accounting, but I quickly found out that there aren't a lot of resources that cover this subject. I had no idea whether what I was doing was right, wrong, or just original. I don't want you to have to pick up little nuggets here and there like I did. So I wrote an ebook called How to Analyze Big Apartment Buildings and Make Them Feel Small that puts together all the pieces of the puzzle. We're also giving away a deal analyzer with the ebook, and they're both completely free. Don't wait as long as I did to start chasing financial freedom. Go to bit.ly/underwriting ebook and get your free copy today. So, we've been kind of talking about, we've really shifted, hopefully the listener's mindset that the age is not like a limiting factor. Could you talk about some of the advantages that you think being young has given you? Because at Obsidian, you have a lot of young people at your company in pretty high positions, right?
There's only 4 of us right now. So I'm second to youngest, but we do have somebody else that's younger. He's like an office admin operations type person. Just a little bit. We actually went to college together and I hired him after college. So what was your question again?
Just what are the advantages that the youth has provided you at Obsidian?
Yeah, Obsidian and just in general in business, I think being young has provided me nothing but advantages. In general, coming out of school, whether you have some student debt or you don't, coming out of school, you normally don't have a mortgage. You normally don't have a lot of overhead bills. You probably don't have kids, and you're probably not married yet. And you may hopefully even be single. So if you're in that position, you've got a great ability to put your head down and grind and not have those obligations, which may take a lot more time. So to make up for the fact that maybe you don't have a high paying job or you don't have money yet, or you don't have all the contacts that you might have, even if you've been working as an employee for 10, 20 years, to make up for that, you have time. And so not only do you have time in the day, but you have time in terms of many, many years ahead of you. And I think that's been my advantage. Other advantage is I have a philosophy. Older, more experienced people in general love helping younger people. I told you guys a story about how I bought that deal. He was 3 times my age, more than 3 times my age. And I reminded him of himself when he was my age. And that's why he sold me that deal. Glenn liked that I'm young. I bring a lot of different skills to the team through technology, through social media, through, our systems in terms of bringing in investors. And, I run a YouTube channel. I have a big social media following, and I bring all these different things to the table that he doesn't bring. And so that skill set of being young has really worked to my advantage. And he likes that. And he saw that when he was like, man, maybe I should partner with this young guy because he's going to bring all the stuff that I don't bring. And Glenn brings a lot of the things that I don't have. Like, he's got a significant amount more of capital and experience and track record. And so being young has been huge, in my opinion.
The technology and the social media is something that we hear a lot too, that young people we have that advantage over the older generation, especially people maybe like Glenn who are already successful and they just don't feel like they need it. So they're not out there incorporating new things into their business. Whereas when you're young, you have to figure it all out and you're just constantly trying new things and throwing stuff at the wall until it sticks.
If you're not using technology right now and social media in your business, you're 10 steps behind and you're losing 100%. Wouldn't be surprised if you're extinct in 10 years. So you have to be. You have to be. It's huge. I've raised millions of dollars from people I met through social media. Millions. Mm-hmm. And I'll check the SEC's box. I've built relationships with all of them, but I met them through social media.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, well, it's just like online marketing. I mean, you can go to your meetup where there's 50 people, but I mean, you run a Facebook group called the 10X Apartment and Franchising. I forget the name of the group.
10X Apartment Investing Franchise Mastery.
Yeah. You have 2,500 people in that group, and you're like the founder of the group. That's an audience of 2,500 people. I mean, good luck developing those types of relationships at your meetup. It would take you all year.
Exactly. I could put one post out on Instagram and it's seen by 20,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy.
Beautiful.
Right.
So, Dave, you've kind of branded yourself as an underwriter. What do you think helped you get those type of skills? I mean, I know running the first couple of properties maybe helped a little bit, but we've used your analyzer and it has a lot of good tips on how to do it. How'd you develop those skills?
Yeah, thanks for using it, by the way. I developed a lot of those skills through the investment banking when I did some consulting and auditing as well in college. And so those internships I did, you're working 80 hours a week in Excel. So I got really good at Excel modeling. And so once I got in, I basically built that analyzer from scratch. I mean, it started with one page. And then every time I thought of something new, I would just add it in and add it in. And so over time, I built out that underwriting tool. And every time I missed something on a deal, like those first 12 units, one thing I missed was I didn't know you had to pay a year's worth of insurance when you closed. They want a year's worth escrowed, right? You got to pay. So I only budgeted, a month or two in escrow. And so I forgot that. So now in the analyzer, it automatically budgets into your closing costs on every deal, a year's worth of insurance upfront. So things like that, you miss it and you fail, and then you course correct and you add it in. And so I've learned over time from that. Learn from management companies too, and mentors, different tactics and tips and things on underwriting. So I've just incorporated that all into this model I've built, which is now actually becoming an online software. But that's kind of the gist of how I learned. Just practice.
So anyone listening, remember, put in a year's worth of insurance when you buy the property up front.
Yeah. I can tell you a million other things, but yeah, there's a lot of little things you'll learn.
Mm-hmm. So what advice do you have for someone young, like the three of us that just put their first deal under contract? Besides,
you just put a deal under contract?
No. What advice would you have for like a young person?
That's awesome.
Besides, take a deep breath.
Yeah. Advice for someone that's looking to put their first deal under contract.
Well, they just put it under contract.
Just put it under contract. Get ready to not sleep for the next 60 days. I think there's a lot of different factors that could go into that, but the best thing is be organized. I think the reason why I'm good at closing deals, that's part of my favorite part of the business, honestly, is you get a deal under contract and working it to closing, which has the most setbacks and failures in that short time period. But I think, in my opinion, one of the most fun parts. When you're raising money, you're working with the third-party reports, you're working with the lender, you're doing your on-site due diligence and inspections. There's a lot that goes on, and be very, very organized with all that stuff. And it'll save you a lot of time after you close on the deal, and you got to go back and look at stuff. And organized in terms of all the documents you're going to be looking at, and also organized in terms of accounting. What money did you spend? Where did it come from? Where did it go? Have that all tracked very well so that you can transfer that over to the management company and your accountants so that they can properly record it. Because a year down the road, after you do, say you buy a property in February, a year later, when you're doing your taxes for 2020, you're not going to remember all that stuff. Make sure you track it all.
That is advice that I know, but I need to follow better.
Yeah, dude. If I showed you my Dropbox, I'd blow your mind.
Whenever tax season comes around, I'm like, I knew I was going to regret this. Like,
hey, we all do it. We all do it. But yeah, dude, got to be organized. That's huge.
Yeah.
So, given the market with its all-time highs now, obviously a little bit different than when you got in, what are some different strategies you guys are employing to newer properties that you're either buying and repositioning or on the development side?
So existing properties, we're hitting from all angles. We have a lot of broker relationships. We have a team of people that cold call owners directly. And then we send out mailers, direct mail to owners as well. So those are 3 ways that we target property owners. On that note, there's no secret sauce. It's like timing is huge. You just might get lucky and come across a great deal. You might miss it by a week. And so the key is always have a full pipeline and look at a lot of deals. We're underwriting 10 to 20 deals a week and, making 3 to 5 offers a week at least, sometimes more. So if you're not looking at that many properties, you're going to have a hard time finding great deals to buy. New development, a strategy we're working with right now, actually on 2 of our development projects, is owners contributing land. The owner owns a piece of land. I'll give you an example. Owner owns a piece of land. They've owned it for a while, free and clear. They don't want to sell it, pay the taxes. They want to develop the property, but they don't have the ability to do it themselves. Well, they're in luck because we do. And what we'll do is they'll contribute the land to us. We'll value the land with them and negotiate that. They'll contribute the land to us. We'll go through, we'll develop the property, and the value of their land is like their equity investment. Say it's worth $1 million. That's almost like they invested $1 million passively into the deal. We'll raise the rest of the money. We'll get the land approved. But what's nice is we don't have to pay for the land up front and then go through that whole approval process, or we don't have to lock it up with earnest money in the contract. We'll just have an agreement, or they'll contribute land to a new LLC with us, and we'll go through and we'll develop it, at which point it converts to equity. So we're doing 2 deals like that right now, which is it's awesome. And we get to work with the owners directly. We have more time. We're not under a time crunch of a contract. So far it's working really well.
Yeah,
Definitely
that is awesome.
Strategy.
So is that kind of why you're getting into new development? Was it just opportunistic with these land purchases or these land agreements, or with the market the way it is, was your thoughts, hey, C properties are trading for so much, we can build new for just a little bit more. Like, we'd rather have a brand new property.
You couldn't be more on the money there, dude. I mean, in Austin. So the only place we do new development is Austin because we're here and we don't really want to go too far away with it. So we can be very close. The first home we're doing is literally, I live like 2 miles from the site, which is awesome. So Austin, Texas, C-class multifamily built in the 70s is selling for $100,000 to $140,000 a unit. I've seen some sell for more than that. 120 to 140,000, is not absurd for C-class apartments in Austin. And so we're building brand new. It's not like an A-class with large units. They're 800 square foot units or 850. And it's like, I'd say like A- or B+ class. We don't have a ton of amenities. It's only 50 apartments. So we don't have a pool and all that. So it's not going to compete with the huge, luxurious A-class buildings, but we're also building it for less. So we're going to build it for about $135 a unit, all in land, entitlements, everything, development costs, when properties 40 years older are selling for that same price. At that point, when we realized that, that's when we decided to build.
But Dave, when the recession hits, the C-class properties are going to perform better, and your high-end properties, everyone's going to move out of.
Thank God we're not building Class A luxury apartments. We're building apartments that are going to rent for $200 below that, which was our goal. We didn't want to compete with the Class A's. We wanted to be the next step down, an option for a newer, nice apartment, but not at the rent level. So those guys building those apartments, they're maybe renting for $1,500, $1,600 a month, and they're building them for like $170, $180 a unit, maybe more, maybe less. We're building these for $135 a unit. Our rents are going to be $1,100 to $1,200 a month, $1,100 to $1,250 a month. So when everyone leaves there, they're going to come to ours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're still gonna have like brand new product too.
And the C-class stuff, which is built in the 70s and 80s, they're all renting for like $1,000 a month. So we're like not much more than them. And we're building it for the same price, brand new.
Yeah.
So our expenses will be 10, 15% lower, maybe more.
Brilliant.
Very brilliant.
So there's one thing I'm like super
Well, wait
interested
till I finish. I'll let you know if it was actually brilliant. We'll see how it goes. But I feel very confident in it. I mean, everything seems to make sense. So
yeah, on paper, it definitely does.
Mhm.
So there's something I'm really interested in learning more about. I've heard it at Obsidian. When you guys send out an LOI, you tell the brokers basically like this LOI is like law. Unless we find something material in the due diligence, material meaning like absolutely game changing, like we're not backing out of this deal and we're not retrading. How are you doing all of that due diligence up front before you've locked it up under contract and you can go into all the units?
Yeah, so you're right when you say that. That is how we operate. I don't like putting out LOIs and changing them. That is the LOI I send and I sign my name on is what I'm going to buy your building for, unless some kind of material change happens or there's something that you were not true about. You provided false information. So I only do that and say that after I've actually toured a property and we've run all the numbers on it. So if I'm just running numbers and I haven't come and actually looked at the property yet, I'll still send in offers, but I will literally tell brokers in an email so they can forward it to the seller, consider this like a check dated, 75 days in advance. We're going to close on this property. And I think the reason is I just look at so many deals and I feel really confident about the numbers. And we're conservative. I'm not, I'm putting a lot of offers out and a lot of times I'm getting overbid. I'm putting offers on properties that I feel comfortable at, numbers I feel comfortable at. And so I just feel very confident that whatever that offer is that I put out and the numbers look good. And we've done our research. We've asked the brokers a lot of questions on the condition of the property. I just know we can close on it at that price if everything goes according to plan and there's no material changes that we didn't know about.
So what would you describe as a material issue or a game changer?
Yeah, so if they said all the roofs were like 3 years old, I'm going to assume in my underwriting that I don't have to replace any roofs. If I get there and 4 roofs are shot and I have to spend $150,000, my offer is going to change. And the way I can do this is I ask a lot of questions up front to the broker. So I'll say, what condition is the plumbing in, or what is it, galvanized or copper? What type of electrical panels do you have? What's the condition of the roof? What's the condition of the parking lot? And I'll go and tour the property and look at all this stuff. I'll check out a couple vacant units and, if they have any renovated units, I'll look at it. And I just take all this into account. And then I pad my renovation budget a decent amount. And, at that point, I feel confident that my contingency will absorb minor things in the renovation budget. And then anything major, maybe they didn't tell me about, at that point we can go back and retrade. But other than that, we put in pretty conservative offers.
So is that what most of your questions to the broker are about then, just the condition of the property?
Yeah, condition and, sometimes on the financials too. Like if I see stuff that doesn't seem in line or I'm curious about, I'll ask questions about financials too. But if everything's pretty clean and we get down to the condition of the property, at that point, I feel really comfortable. Whatever offer I put in that makes sense in the model is going to work. And the reason I know that is because I've bought hundreds of apartments now. I've gone full cycles from start to sale on 6 deals. And I've hit my numbers on those deals. I know like the way I underwrite, I'm very close on how we perform. So yeah, I trust the numbers.
Trust the numbers. Another nugget. So another question falling into like the property condition then. If you're looking at a property that has 7-8-year-old water heaters, they're not at the end of their useful life, but you're not going to replace them up front. How does that change your underwriting?
I normally budget for water heaters and HVACs that we're going to replace 10 to 15% of them up front, maybe 10% of them up front. And then depending on what I see at the walkthrough, and then the rest of them are just going to be replaced through operations. And we have CapEx reserves and repairs and maintenance budgets, which typically will cover that. They're pretty similar across most properties. And those budgets will shift depending on the story behind the deal. Has the owner been poorly maintaining this property for a decade now? I'm probably going to budget to replace 20% of them or 25% up front, and my ongoing budget will be increased. So I take all that stuff into account. If it's a really clean property, solid management company, solid owner, I could be a little bit more lean on that stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So Dave, you've been full cycle on a couple deals, like you said. What are some creative ways you guys have been able to generate more income
On the properties or in my business?
on the properties?
I haven't gotten uber creative other than utility bill backs, charging for storage. Yeah, I'm trying to think of I know a lot of people will reserve parking spaces we've done. All you got to do is paint numbers on spaces and say, hey, this is your number. Pay an extra $20 a month for it. That's the easiest value add you can do. You
That's
can build
awesome.
carports. Yeah, that one's great. You go and do that in any property. People will always be willing to pay a little bit extra. As long as you're not on a D-class property, people will pay a little bit extra to save that spot right outside their apartment door. So well, that's a good way. You could add in carports. You could build more storage on site, pet fees, all that kind of stuff. Washer dryer, you can go and buy washer dryers for the whole property and then charge an extra $50 on top of that. I mean, you're spending $800, $900 for a set, and then you're making $600 in a year if you charge $50 a month. That's like a 75-80% return on your money. That's a great way to do it. You'll pay it back in like a year, 3 months, something like that, year, 4 months. Oh gosh, what other ways? Yeah, I haven't gotten too much more creative than that. I guess I'm pretty basic.
The reason I asked that is we had another guest on, and one of the things they do on the management side is instead of security deposits, they charge a move-in fee. And because they word it like that, they're able to keep the move-in fee. And they just have insurance bonds on the back end that kind of protects the tenant and you from whatever they do. So
I've heard of that.
Yeah, so they charge a move-in.
We charge like, application fee and then probably not as sizable as their moving fee, but, charge like an admin fee or like $100 for moving someone in, which is a lot of money. But yeah, if you're charging the full $600, $700, $900 in a move-in fee and then they've got bonds, there are a lot of creative and interesting ways that people are using, there are different companies that will back security deposits and insure against it. I've heard of a lot of them and we haven't done that yet. No.
Yeah, it was just really interesting when he told me. I was just wondering if there was anything else I'm missing.
No, that's cool. That's kind of cool to hear about. I'll have to watch that episode.
Yeah, learn a lot of things just interviewing people such as yourself. So Obsidian Capital, I mean, you guys have really been hitting the pavement over the last year or two. You've done quite a few repositionings. You're doing new development now. What's next for you guys in the next few years?
Yeah, we're really going to continue rocking and rolling on this new development side. I could see us doing anywhere from $20 to $50 million a year in new development projects coming up. Our goal this year is to buy 2,000 apartments. Even if we hit half of that, I'll be happy in this market. We're very conservative, so every deal we do has got to be a really good deal. I don't like doing average deals. So starting a software company, that's huge. That's separate from Obsidian, but that is going to really change the multifamily industry over the next couple of years.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Sure. Yes. So the analyzer that you said you guys have used, I never intended to sell that. I built that literally for my own use, and I loved using it. And a couple of people saw it, and they're like, "Hey, can I pay you for that?" And I was like, "It's not really for sale. You can have it." And they're like, "Oh, I'll give you $100." I was like, "Okay." So a couple of people did that, and so I put it on my website. And in the past year, I've sold like $60,000 worth of a spreadsheet, word of mouth, zero advertising. And it just comes, it's like I make as much passive income on that as I do on some of my apartment buildings that are $10 million. So I figured this isn't enough. Excel cannot do everything that I would like it to do. It's great, but I think technology can further advance and push forward the not only just underwriting, but the acquisitions process in general. All of our acquisitions and I hope most people's revolves around a great financial model. And first of all, there are a lot of bad financial models out there. I've seen people buy deals on a spreadsheet where literally an equation was wrong and their IRR was off by 5%. And they thought it was like 16. I found the equation wrong and it turned out to be 11. And that deal, they lost $150,000 in earnest money. They pulled out of the deal because they couldn't raise money because people knew the numbers something was wrong and just it looked good on a spreadsheet, but it wasn't actually a good deal. And they lost money because of a bad spreadsheet. And so, yeah, it's crazy. So acquisitions is built around the numbers. You have to use a model to figure out what price to pay for a deal. Because mine's done so well, I figure I might as well turn this into a web-based software. And so it's going to have a lot of technology backing it. Instead of manually inputting all the historical expenses, you can upload a T12 and a rent roll. It's going to pull the data out automatically, put it into the spreadsheet for you in 60 seconds. You're going to be able to create preset categories of inputs for your operating expenses, closing costs, financing details. So literally going into the deal, you upload the T12 rent roll. That's all your historical information. Your presets will auto fill in per unit costs for all of your operating expenses. And then you pretty much just pick what your new rents are going forward, how many units you want to renovate, your renovation costs, and you'll analyze the deal in like 10 minutes and then go back, maybe tweak it. From there, you can print it into awesome reports, share it with your lender. Eventually my goal is to be able to, people can get their deals funded through the platform. You send LOIs, and then I'll have a basic CRM where you can track all the deals you've got going, from deals you're underwriting to offered on to under contract on. And really the goal is to bring your whole acquisitions process into one system that will make you be able to look at more deals, offer more deals, and feel confident in the numbers.
And wait, so what's that software called?
Real Estate Lab.
Real Estate Lab.
I spent a lot of money for that domain. I was like, I don't know what to call it, but I'm not calling it a deal analyzer, but Real Estate Lab. So it's going to be kind of an educational platform too. I'm not selling coaching programs, but included with the subscription, there's going to be a ton of educational content from every part of the multifamily industry.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. So I think we're running a little short on time. We wanted to get to our section called the Fast Five. They're the same 5 questions we ask every guest who comes on our show. So if you're ready, we'll get right into those.
Born ready. Let's do it.
Born ready. All right. So if you had to go back to a few years when you were just starting out again, what would you have done differently?
I would have bought every deal I saw in the first 24 months. And it would have gone up in value. I'd have bought everything. I would be a billionaire by now.
That's
Is that not a? Can I not answer like that?
No, that's a great answer.
My actual answer.
You're right.
Answer.
You're right.
Yeah. If I knew what I do now, but
hindsight is 2020.
Yeah. Question number 2: how do you see young professionals adding the most value to experienced operators in this space?
Technology and hustle. Hustle, man. If you have the ability to work 80 hours a week, there's no reason you shouldn't be doing it.
Just 80?
Yeah, you're right. That's a good question. Just 80.
Yeah. We got like 144 hours in a week.
Hell yeah, you do. And you only need to sleep 6 hours a night. So
right.
You're right.
I get about 5. I'll be up at 4 a.m.
There you go, man. Love it.
All right. What's the biggest mistake you've made in your career, and how have you since adjusted your business?
Yeah, I lost a deal 6 months ago. It took too long to get under contract. And, you'll hear this from a lot of people in the industry, time kills deals. And the seller decided not to sell. We were about to get a sweet deal on it. And in like 2 years, we probably would have made well over $1 million on that deal and lost it. So moral of the story is, do not dilly-dally. Get the deal, lock it up. Don't argue over a little BS in the contract. Just get it done.
Mm-hmm.
So what's been your favorite way to incorporate technology and social media into your business?
I think raising capital and just telling my story and inspiring people is what I get out of social media. I like what you guys are doing. This is for young people and multifamily. I think that's killer because a lot of people don't think it's possible when it absolutely is. So I just like inspiring other people that think it's not possible.
Mm-hmm. And then the last question is, do you have a favorite book that you would recommend to our listeners?
Oh, yeah. Favorite book is Maintenance Man to Millionaire, written by Glenn Gonzalez, my business partner.
Oh, yeah.
He just released it this year. Awesome book.
I have the Kindle version of it. Otherwise, I'd pull it up right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a good plug.
Yeah, it's a good book.
Yeah.
It's a good book.
Dave, before we go, what do you see in the market in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, so as of today, Tuesday, March 10th, everyone knows the stock market has kind of crashed in the past couple of weeks. Coronavirus going on. I mean, we've been at a peak all-time high. Real estate market, I think, will really flatten in the next year. I don't see any reason how we can continue to see the astronomical pricing increases we've seen in the past couple of years. Cap rates are extremely low to the point where if they were any lower, buying properties with tax adjustments and insurance adjustments literally will put you at break-even points with financing. So I don't see any reason how it could get higher right now. The only thing that's going to incrementally push it is obviously rent increases, which rents can only go so high when your class of tenant is really not making that much more money. How can rents go from 800 to 1,000 to 1,200 to 1,400 to 1,600 over the course of 4 years when the person's income was 13 an hour and now it's 15 an hour? It doesn't make sense.
Right.
So I see it flattening. I can definitely see if the economy as a whole tanks, what could really change multifamily and real estate in general is financing and funding. I mean, interest rates are so low right now. Imagine a world where Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac said, hey, we're closing our doors for 6 months. We're just not lending anymore. I mean, what would that do? That would kill everybody. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but they've closed their doors for a couple of weeks before. In the past decade, they've done that several times. So I think interest rates and global economy could really affect that. And then also the fact that people are overpaying for deals right now. And we're going to see a lot of foreclosures in the next 2 years. Mark my words. I'm already seeing them. I've seen several. So
yeah, we've definitely been on the other end. We've been on the other end of that overbidding.
Yeah.
We've actually been, brokers are just like, what do you mean? Of course, rents are going to keep increasing 5% per year for the entire hold. I'm like,
yeah, sure.
I'm like, I don't know what you're looking
like, whatever you say, man.
I'm not putting that in the pro forma, but sure.
Agree to disagree.
Well, Dave, thanks so much for giving us some of your time. I know it's extremely valuable. What's the best way that our listeners can get in touch or reach you?
Yeah, if you have Instagram, which hopefully everybody does, hit me up at Real Estate Jedi or search David Toupin, or you can hit me on our website, obsidiancapitalcode.com.
All righty. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Millennials in Multifamily podcast, brought to you by Kronos Investment Partners. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and a written review at iTunes so that we can connect with more people. Finally, head on over to kronosinvestmentpartners.com and sign up for our newsletter so you can stay updated on everything we're doing. If you're interested in partnering with us as we find new opportunities, you can also schedule a phone call with us under the Contact Us tab at kronosinvestmentpartners.com.